Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So Paintsomeway had recently contacted me again about collabing with them to do another video. So I told them, sure, why not? I am sure that you guys have heard about it too. All these people doing the diamond dots, and I've never done them before, and I kind of wanted to know what the hype was behind them. So I decided, why not? You know, they're giving me some options I can pick to try, so let's try one of these and see what all the hype is about. But more importantly, can I incorporate resin in with this? So this beautiful cross is what we're going to be working on today, and to kind of go with my experiment on if we can resin it in any manner of speaking. Now, they also gave me a few other things to play around with that we're going to use in some future videos. Not this particularly. This is just kind of to store all my extra diamond dot things in. I thought, you know, why not? It's a really cute little storage container. I like it a lot, and I like the fact that in it you can pull out, you know, them 4 at a time, so you don't have to keep them all together. And you don't have to have them all open together, and they do open individually too. So I thought that was really, really cool, because some of the ones that I have, you have to open the entire thing out. Anyway, I also got these 2 stamp seals, which I really love, and I have some ideas coming up with them where we're going to play around with it, you know, if I can ever get it open. All right, so this first one is a really, really pretty moon and stars. And then the other one is just a gorgeous flower. Like I said, I do have some ideas, so you'll be seeing these again at a later date. Isn't that cute? I really like it. And we're going to put those away for now. And what we're going to do is we are going to try this diamond dots. Now, if you have never done it before, which I have not up until this point, it gives you this little pink square, which is a wax, and then your dotting tool. It also, they give you the little tray that you can put your diamonds in and the diamonds for it. Now, it is covered with a plastic sheet because the underside has an adhesive on it, and the wax that you dip it in just kind of helps the diamonds stick to your tool so that you can pick them up more easily and kind of just pop them on where you need them. They're done up by either numbers or symbols, depending on the one that you pick. And they come individually done, at least the ones that I've seen anyway. I can't speak for all of them, by color and shape and all of that stuff. Now, this one in particular is not like a wall-to-wall one of just the diamonds. There is a lot of negative space in here. So we're going to see how that works and just kind of go with it. Now, I'm going to go through this super, super fast so you can see. Just going to put on some music for you guys as I go through this, and then I will be back once I'm done with this, and we're going to go and see what we can do with some resin in this. All right, I will catch you guys on the flip side. All right, so thank you, Emma, for finishing this. Okay, now it's time to see what we can do. So I have this wooden kind of plaquey type deal that I found that this cross is going to fit on. So the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to give it a coat of white chalkboard paint. Now this is a matte paint and it's just by Waverly. And I'm just going to go over this really, really well because the background, the majority of the background is white. Like that's the basic background to it. Now it does have a lot of kind of watercolor-esque type design on it, but I don't want to, I want to use those colors as like an added bonus feature, not as the main thing. So white it is. And then I'm going to let this dry really, really well so that we can move on to the next step. So my thought process is I don't want to lose, like I know I can cover this completely with resin, but I'm going to lose all the facets and the, you know, kind of like the purpose of what the diamond dots are for, that sparkle that they give and the just the texture and all of that. And I don't want to lose that, which is where I'm going to have an issue with the resin, I think, because we all know if we bury it, cover it completely, we're going to lose a lot of that. Now, I do have my little, it's for my Cricut, but I want to make sure that all of these dots are down really, really well. Now, I do know that they sell a glue for it, but if I'm going to resin it, I don't need a glue. So we're just going to kind of go from there. And I'm going to kind of start cutting this down to the size and shape that I want it. And we're just going to start by getting rid of all this excess stuff. Now is the time, and this took me a hot minute to kind of figure where I wanted it to go and kind of line up and all of that other stuff to make it kind of flow nicely with this, because this is an odd shaped piece of wood. I was trying to get the corners to line up with the cross, and those pieces that stick out on the side, it's not 100% like even with the sides, but I did get the top and bottom to match. And if I went any farther down to make it even with those points, then the bottom part of the cross is hanging off. So it kind of is what it is on this one, but it's going to be fine. It will be. And now that I have my top and my bottom of the point of the cross kind of centralized, now it's time to kind of just tape this down so it doesn't move on me and start cutting it a little bit more. I want to get a good bit of this white off because I have the white background, so I don't really need it, but I want to incorporate as much of this color as I can. And if you've never done the diamond dots, this is kind of like a super thick, not paper, it's some type of a fabric-ish type stuff, but kind of almost plasticky as well. I don't know. I realize that probably doesn't make much sense, but almost like a canvas maybe. Maybe that's a better word for it. So it is super thick, and it does have the bulges in it kind of still from it being folded, but we're going to see if we can work around that. And I'm just now cutting off the majority of the white. I want the kind of points of the cross to kind of stand out on their own. The other issue that I'm going to have is I need to do something that's going to kind of hide the seam when I put this down on the wood, because you're going to see the cut marks and all of that. So I kind of need to do something that's going to make it just blend a little bit better, I guess. But right now we're just going to focus on getting this cut out as nicely as possible. Now, because of the way that the watercolor is kind of placed on there, there is no, I can't cut it exactly one way on one side and on the other. Like, it's just not going to work. Not for what I'm doing. I mean, you could do it, but that's just, it's not how I envision it. So my cuts are not going to be completely, the same on both sides, but it's fine. We're going to work around it and see what we can do. So I'm just about finished up kind of cutting this out. Now I just want to make sure that it's all lined up and we're good. Okay, so the next step that I thought that I should try is I've got some tack it all over glue, and I've never used it before, so I want to see if I can make this work to kind of get this cross to sit down on here, so I don't have to go the route of like hot glue or Elmer's glue or any of that, and we can just stick it down. And this way it allows me to pick it up and reposition it as I need to. So we're going to see if it'll work for this. I don't know. It says it's good for emblems and all kinds of different stuff. And I've seen Michelle on Glitz and Glitter by Michelle that, you know, she uses it for a lot of stuff. So I thought I'd give it a shot too and see if it works. So the first thing that I did, I don't want to say wrong. It says on there to use a thin coat and let it dry. Now, I did a very thin coat and I gave it about 10 minutes to dry after this. And it didn't really stick. Like, I had to go back over it again. Now, it could be because of how thick this is. I don't know. But there were some spots that I guess maybe I didn't cover well enough, because I do have to go back in later on, like almost right before I'm getting ready to resin, and kind of glue on some parts so it doesn't come up and float. So, I don't know. Maybe I just didn't put enough on. Maybe it's just too heavy for it. Not sure. Never used it before, so that is a learning curve for me as well. But, you know, I made it work in the end, so that's all that really matters. Now, sorry about the shaking of my camera. It's kind of connected. The piece that holds it up is connected to my desk, so if I'm like moving around, like I'm really pushing hard on here, it shakes like everything and it causes my camera to shake. So I apologize for that. It'll be over here real soon. But I am going over it with this roller to kind of help push down all of those pieces and to push this onto that tack it all over glue, just to make it stick more, because I don't want this floating up once I put the resin on it. All right, so I decided that I was going to try and go with like a piece of ribbon around the edge, and I guess I didn't put the tack it stuff on close enough to the edge or whatever. I don't know. It didn't want to stick either. So I thought we're going to use some of those gorgeous glitters that Apryl gave me, and I used some in my last video, I think it was. No, the one before. But we're going to use some of those and just kind of sprinkle it around the edge and rub it on. Now, it is sticking to, or the glitter is sticking to that, so that's a plus. But I got 4 different colors, and I couldn't kind of decide what I wanted to go with. So right now I'm just using kind of like an iridescent white, and I'm not putting a lot on. I don't want it to overpower it. I just want to give it a little bit more sparkle. And this is also going to kind of help hide that edge. Now, I realized that, not the edge, the seam, like the edge of the diamond dots thing. I realize it's not going to cover it, but it's not, it's going to draw your attention away from it, right? So that's kind of what I'm going for with this. So this one is more of like a, kind of like a light goldish with some silver specks, and I don't know, there's a few different colors in this, but it's gorgeous. And I thought I'd add a few of those again for interest. And then I'm going in here with this rose gold kind of medium chunk glitter, putting down a tiny bit of that. And then there's kind of like a coffee colored one that's super fine. And I'm just going to go in with the tiniest little bit of that, rub it in, and then that's it. And it's just going to kind of play off of some of those darker colors that are in here. I could have gone for the greens or the purple or the pinks, but I thought I'd kind of let that shine on its own and go for those darker, moodier colors and just bring that into it and give it just, I don't know. I just thought that it would work better, flow better, and I think it looks really nice. Especially once we get the resin on it, and that really makes that glitter pop. Okay, so we're about done with this. Now it's time to get ready for resin. And I'm could have glued around the sides, but I didn't feel like fooling with all of that. I was kind of on a time crunch here, and I needed to get this video done. So I'm just going to take some painter's tape, and I'm going to line it up with the very top edge of this wood and just kind of let it hang down so that if any of the resin that I put on runs over, at least it's not going to go under the wood, right? And that my sides and my bottom should be safe. Should be safe. Keyword should. But that being said, I'm also not putting a lot of resin on here either. So when I mix it up, I'm literally mixing up 80 mils. And that's not a lot for as big as this thing is. This thing is at least a good foot. I didn't measure it, but it's at least a good foot, maybe even 18 inches tall. And I don't know, 10 inches or so wide. Like it's a big boy. Yeah, see, I had to glue this on, and then I just put my 18,000 pound mold that I made that was in the last video on it just to kind of hold it down. I started with the glue, but I didn't end there. I wanted to make sure that sucker was stuck. Finish taping it up. Now I'm going to wait for this to dry, mix up my resin. Okay, so I am not just pouring this on, she says as she pours it on. But really, I'm not. I'm just kind of going around the edge where the diamonds are not at. Because I do need it to reach all the way to the edge. Like, I want it to look like a top coat, but I'm not covering up all those dots. My plan is, and this part takes me like 101 years to do, is to have the resin go all the way over it, right? But I don't want it higher than the dots. I want the dots to still be protruding from this piece. So this is where I'm not sure if it's going to work, because we all know that the way resin cures, that if I don't have enough on here, it's going to leave divots and all of that, and I'm not going to get a smooth top coat, which I want, but at the same time, it needs to be crazy thin because these dots are tiny. Like, okay, I have the red or the pink and the blue ones that are bigger that I could put way more resin on and still not cover them and not lose all the facets and whatever. But all of those little ones, like the green and the purple and that kind of coppery color for the cross, are all like itty bitty tiny little pinhead dots. So it's got to be super thin. So my thought process on this was, in order to be able to do it, now I'm going in here and I'm just taking my like fine tipped silicone tool and I am running the resin over all of these pieces, because it's going to also act as a glue to make sure that none of them come undone as well. And I'm just going to kind of work it in. Now, the one thing that I didn't think of is the fact that what it's on, like I said before, is kind of like a fabric-ish kind of material that is also soaking up the resin. So that's a whole nother problem that I was noticing the further I got in this. Like, I would go and put resin somewhere and then I'd look and it would be gone. Granted, it's going to move, but at the same time, like, it was like disappearing. So I had to keep going back over the same spots again to put a little bit more, because I want it to be kind of like at the very base of these dots, if that makes sense. Like, I hope I'm making sense, because it's kind of almost those you have to be here to really truly understand what it is that I'm doing, because it's not as simple as just pouring it on and letting it do its thing. I'm trying to work it in there and not have all of these dots covered up, because I don't want to lose that look and that texture and that sparkle and shine. Like, I don't want it to just be plain and blah. Anyone can do that. I want to do this, but do it differently. And do it as something I've not seen before. So I am going in here. Now, I'm not saying that I'm not covering them all up. There are spots that when I put the resin in, it does cover it. And I take the side of my tool and I'm kind of like spreading it around and moving it over. So if you go to try this and you're like, oh my God, I've covered them, and you can see right when you cover it how you're losing that look, just kind of scrape most of it away and then go back and add more a little at a time if you need to. Like, this probably took me a good 40 minutes. Like, my resin was like getting ready to go off as I was still working on this. That's how long it took me to do it. But I got there, I got it done. Now, I did babysit this for a while, and I had a little bit. I didn't even use the full 80 mils. I had a little bit that I put into, like, just clear, just kind of threw into another mold at the end because it was getting ready to go off, like, completely when I was done. And later on, like, maybe 30, 40 minutes after I had finished, I looked at it again, and I'm like, looking at it from a different light, and I'm like, oh my God, there's holes in it. So I went back and I took some of the resin that was in the other mold, and at this point it's like super, super goopy, almost like a slime, like thickness and consistency, to where it wasn't set yet because now it was in a thinner mold, but at the same time, like, if I hadn't have caught it then, I probably wouldn't have been able to do it. And in order to get it off, I had to get my heat gun and kind of melt it off to go into those areas to kind of fill those voids that were there that needed just a tad bit more. But all in all, it works. It does work. Now, do I think that this is going to work with all of them? I don't know. Because if you have a wall-to-wall diamond dots, it might not work. But I've seen different ones too. So this one, the diamonds in there are those clear ones, right? That you can actually see through, and you can see the bottom, how it's silver or whatever, right? But there's another one that I'm working on that I want to try something with, and all of those are opaque. So, and they're kind of more rounded. Like, there's a little bit of cut to them, but they're completely different than what these are. Now, that one is a wall-to-wall, nothing but dots to make up the image. So, can I use it and do the same thing? I don't know. Maybe. But you'd have to take into consideration the type of dots that they are, the type of diamonds that they are giving you in that particular one. If it's a wall-to-wall, if you have a lot of void like this one, where you can put that resin in between and kind of make it work, I don't know. Like, would it ruin that other one? I don't know. I'm nowhere near even finished with doing the piece itself yet, so I couldn't tell you because I don't know what the aesthetic is of it at this point. Something to think about before you jump in and resin some, you resin it, but it could potentially work. I don't know. It's something that I may have to try at a later date. Maybe with this one, but I'm not sure because it's an elephant and I don't want to ruin it because I really love it. But that being said, I'm just going to finish this up here. And then we're going to let it cure. Okay, now here we are, 24 hours later, taking off the tape. And I'm not going to lie, I was super crazy nervous that maybe I had put too much on and I'm going to lose it. Or even just putting the little bit on that I did, maybe that would ruin it too. Like, I really didn't know. I really didn't know, because you can only tell so much from the angle unless until you can actually pick it up and be like, did I do it? And I did get a little bit where I guess I didn't push the tape well enough down against the wood, and some of the resin kind of went down. It was no big deal. Like, it was barely any. It's fine. I could go over with some paint if I want and recover it up. But really, I mean, it was such a little bit that you can't even really tell. But I am going through with my craft blade, and just, there are some areas where it's like not completely on the wood, and some areas where the painter's tape kind of stuck to it that I'm just going to kind of scrape off and clean up the edges some. And then we're going to go one step farther with this, because while this looks super beautiful and I am super happy with it, I want to add a little bit more detail to it just to finish it off. So as we're going to look real quick, I'm going to bring this up for you guys so that you can actually see, like, you can still see the dots. So I succeeded in not putting too much resin on here and covering them up so I didn't lose any of the effect that the that the diamonds do. All right, so I decided that going along with that kind of coppery thing, that I'm going to finish off these edges just by taking my copper marker, and it's a round tip marker. So I'm just kind of going halfway between the tip and going over all of these edges just to kind of neaten them up and finish it off. Now, the edges, there are some areas where that resin, as it was drying, kind of pulled away. Not a lot, but this is going to kind of help mask that a little bit, because once this is on there, you're not going to really, you can't really tell unless you're looking for it that there's no resin in those, you know, teeny tiny little spots here and there. And it kind of just finishes it off. It just puts that extra something there that I think changes it and makes it like 100 times better. I absolutely love it. Now, I do go around it a second time just to make sure that it's completely covered. Anyway, let me know what you guys think. Is this something that you think you might try? And if so, I'd love to know. Like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. I will catch you guys on Tuesday and the next one. Love ya. Bye.